Look at him. He's just dickered. Just dickered, boys. Son of a bitch.
Yo, yo. Class A, and macro. Not connected, not elected to participate. Bouncing down the stems will make your head hurt. Enjoy the takes. Says her whose head burns from hearing horror stories. Get burnt from gasoline. I won't be at the trial.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Take Her Wide. This is episode 264. Hopefully I'm not too close to this mic here. Welcome to the show. If this is your first time coming, thank you for tuning in. If you're returning, thanks. Let me shoot off all these sponsors first of all. These people help me get the show to you, so if you can give them a follow or a like, that would help out a lot. So do that, please. First, we have Brewed Biscuits. They're an all-natural spent grain pet treat. So spent grains are basically the oats and barley that have been steeped in hot water to remove the sugars. The sugar water that gets removed, also known as the wort, is what the a brewer will make to make some beer. And these quote-unquote spent grains are being kind of upcycled to make these treats. They're like 20% protein. They still have 70% dietary fiber. They're good for puppies to your old dogs. They're slow-baked in a commercial kitchen. They don't have any alcohol. There's no hops. There's no corn or salt or sugar or additives or preservatives. They're super natural treats. Ocho loves them. There's peanut butter, there's pumpkin sweet potato, and there's apple cinnamon. And these guys are located out of Norfolk County. So it's a really cool little company that's making good treats for your pets, for your dogs. Go to twospentgrains.ca. That's TWO spentgrains.ca, and you can find out more information. I'm going to be doing a contest here soon just for a giveaway for a bag of treats. So tune into the Instagram, which is just Take a Ride Podcast, or the Facebook page too. I'm probably linking them both. But yeah, Brewed Biscuits by Two Spent Grains. Next, we have Heartbeat Hot Sauce. If you're a hot sauce aficionado and you want to try something that's really, really fucking good, local isn't Thunder Bay, but Canadian made. It's my buddy Al and his partner Nancy. They have this hot sauce company called Heartbeat Hot Sauce, and it's fucking so good. They've been running 2-3 years now, and it's really fucking taken off. It's a really good hot sauce. The red habanero, I think, is the best introduction if you like hot but also like flavor. This is the thing. This hot sauce it's delicious. It's it's probably the tastiest hot sauce I've ever had. Sometimes hot sauces are too spicy or they're too vinegary. Is that a word? Vinegary? But this hot sauce is delicious. So if you go to heartbeathotsauce.com, you can find out where you can buy it in a store. Because they're in shops and markets all over the place, from Toronto to fucking Van, I think. Just go to the website, find it, and try some delicious hot sauce. Next, we have Los Cabos Drumsticks. They're Canada's #1 drumstick manufacturer. With over 20 different stick models in 3 different types of wood, they have a stick for any style. They've been supporting me and my bands and now the podcast for a while now. And if your drummer isn't on Los Cabos, get them to try it. They're light. The ones I'm using 5A Intenses. 5A Intenses. They're light but durable. I find that's the biggest thing for me. I need durability, and these sticks totally hold up. The red hickories are great too. Just if you're not into it, or if your drummer isn't using them, just suggest them maybe and have them try them out. I would send you guys a pair each if I could, but I can't. So just try it out on your own. LosCablesDrumsticks.com. Next, Kevin Rigo of Hefner Toyota. He's at 3121 King Street East in Kitchener, and he's a car salesman, and he's a good friend, and he's a good dad, and he's a great dude. If you need to find someone you can trust, Rigo's your guy. I don't know if your parents or you or your aunt, whatever, anyone you know is looking to buy a car, go find Rigo. It's 519 locale, Waterloo, Guelph, whatever. Just, it'll be worth your while. Go see Rigo, go talk to him, mention the show, and you'll get special pricing on new vehicles. So that's dope. Find him on Facebook too. Just find Kevin Rigo of Hefner Toyota. Quick little super simple to do. Ironclad Graphics are a silk screening shop in Kingston, and they specialize in apparel printing. They did my shirts. They've done tons of my band stuff. They do koozies, hats. They do everything. They've been doing it for like 15 years, I think. And they're in Kingston, but they do ship coast to coast, and they're aware of keeping prices competitive. So if you go to ironcladgraphics.com, take a look, see what they got, see what they're offering, and hit them up for a quote. maybe you guys will find your new merch company through them. I've loved all the work they've done, so no complaints here. Excuse me. A couple more. We have Dapper Beard Oil. Dapper Beard Oil is a beard oil company from Ottawa, and it's a good friend of mine, Andrew, running it. What can I say about it? It's 100% natural ingredients. It's all ethically sourced. It helps hydrate your beard, helps repair your beard. It's antibacterial. It reduces beard dandruff. He's seen some press in like GQ and Huffington Post. And he's doing a really dope thing where if you use promo code TakerWide free ship, you'll get free shipping, so save some money. Try out a beard oil and support local business and support small business. Andrew's really, really giving it a go with this, so all love to him for the belief in this show, and I totally believe in his product. I've used it. It's really good. dapperbeardoil.com. And lastly, Wellington Brewery is Canada's oldest independently owned microbrewery. They craft award-winning beers in small batches using the freshest all-natural ingredients. And they make delicious beers. I've been sipping on the Hell's Lager lately. It's just clean, crisp. I don't know. It's just a really delicious beer. I can have a bunch of them and not have a hangover the next day. How's that for a sales pitch? And that's all the ads. Yeah, sorry for the low energy, guys. It's kind of late. I feel like these intros should be more like, hey, fucking, what's up? And, but what do you want me to do? I'm tired. But anyways, this episode's great. This is with Eric Burnet. He is originally from Montreal, and he's now in Southern Ontario. He played with Derelict. He now plays with Samskaras or Samskaras. I can't remember the enunciation or pronunciation of it. But a supporter of the show, and he's writing some really cool music. And we sat down and talked about all the shit we talk about, playing shows up north, touring, self-reflection. It was a fun episode. It really was. So I hope you guys enjoy. This is 264 to start your week with Eric.
Can you hear me well? I plugged in a good mic, but I don't have a stand, so I'm just...
No, it sounds good, man. Yeah, generally over Facebook, it's kind of, it's just a laptop mic, so this sounds a lot better than most, so...
Great.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for your patience. Like, work got a little later than I thought, and I was going to leave, and the guy I was working with, like, had put a case of beer in my van, and I was about to take off. I had to loop back, and whatever. Yada, yada. Happens. Here we are, man.
But, I'm just happy to do this. This is great.
Happy to have you on, man. Like, I feel like it really was a long time coming, because, like, when I fucking finally hit you up with like, oh, yeah, let's fucking do this. I looked, and it was a little while ago that we were kind of conversing about it, but that's the story of my life.
When did you guys play Hamilton? You came through in the fall, right?
It's funny with Hamilton. I don't remember because I've played there too many times, so it all blends together. I feel like,
I think
what are we now in
it
March?
Might have been the first show of the album release.
Maybe. Okay. Yeah. November. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's when we saw each other. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So I guess that was just after the record dropped, right?
I think it was the first show you guys were doing on the first weekend.
Yeah. And actually, your record was a couple of weeks before that, the Lithification. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, October 26th it came out. Yeah.
Yeah, man, it sounds fucking so crushing. It sounds so good.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's I think shit like that has to be produced well, 'cause so much can get lost.
Oh, for sure.
Like, and you have tons of experience with this too. Like, how old are you now?
I'm 34.
34.
Just turned 34, yeah.
I feel like I don't really need to ask these questions as far as like, when did you start? Because everyone says 13, 14, unless you started when you were like 6 or something, but...
No, that's pretty much right. 13, 14 would be right around when I started playing guitar, and the disasters just started happening from there.
But like, it's I think a lesson that, at least I speak to my own experience, where it took me a long time to learn to see the importance of a well-recorded record. I put out a lot of stuff that was maybe subpar in my history, and as you know, at this point in our lives, like, it's so, you can't waste time, and the record just sounds so crushing, man. Fuck, well, I can't even really call it a record. It's like an EP, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, I totally relate to what you're saying too, because the first Derelict record that we put out is not like I can't listen to that. The songs I think are the whole um, career track of that band would have been different if we had pulled out actual good money for that first record, because the songs are great and they were really good for like the age we were at and the experience we had, but we just like we went with a cheap studio that did demos.
Yeah.
And the guy was even telling, because he's like, yeah, this is going to be more of a demo quality when we were kids, and we're like, it's fine.
Yeah.
And now I listen to it and I'm like, oh no, why?
I know, but you don't know. That's no one's really given a lesson on how to do it. And even if you heard that, like you should spend the money, it's like I don't have the money. Like you're a kid. It's way more terrifying to drop thousands into a record when you're 20.
Yeah,
I
totally.
guess,
Especially because you haven't done much with that group of people yet. It's like, is this going to be one thing we're doing?
Yeah.
Is this going to be like, turned out to be, I don't know, close to 10 years with that band.
Yeah,
So
I know, man.
would have been worth it, but we didn't know at the time.
Oh, whatever. But
Yeah.
you learn. You have to learn. That's what I love about that sort of punk DIY ethic is just doing it to do it and figuring it out.
For sure.
For sure, man.
For sure.
And like you
I
cut your
obsess sometimes. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say you're not a new musician to the scene, and I was just gonna kind of talk about quickly, like Derelict in the. Would you say that was the first serious band that you gave a go with?
Well, yeah, in the metal scene for sure. So I kind of had an interesting trajectory in my teen years, because like my first band was like the kind of catch-all band you put together in high school. Like we were playing punk and metal and a bunch of stuff, but we wrote a bunch of originals, and then we ended up doing concerts. Like I was in one of those programs in high school where you had to do community service.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked the school, I'm like, could I put on a show and then we'll give the money to a charity, which we chose Dans la Rue, and count this as like a bunch of people's community service hours.
Oh, cool.
And they were like, yeah, do that. So at 16, 17, I put on a show and donated like money, and then that let us, like, we recorded our own first record. So it was really like out of the ordinary for the age we were at. So like when I was in an actual band that wanted to tour and do all that, strangely enough, I was like a little bit like, okay, finally, like,
Oh yeah,
because the high school thing had been so crazy. Like it was like the defining thing of my teen years, really.
Yeah, and it's so when was that first tour that you guys did? What year was that?
Oh, I believe the first cross Canada tour with Derelict was 2008. So we did 2008, 9, 10. But before that, we did a lot of weekend treks. Like we did Ontario and Quebec stuff over. We'd do like 4-day treks, and we'd go like up north or out here to southern Ontario, because I was in Montreal at the time. So 2008, 9, 10 were our cross Canada tours, which I was actually trying to figure this out. What year did you join Sabatini?
Officially, I think was 09. I think it was May 5th, 09.
Okay, so we have shared the stage, I believe.
Maybe.
You and I.
Maybe.
Did you play a show, a fundraiser for Endost at Frit Alors in Montreal? Were you guys on that?
It doesn't sound familiar, no. But I could have my dates wrong too, because I just know Tugnut broke up in 08. I did a tour with the Sabs in the fall of 08, but just as a sit-in. But I think it was 09 May. So maybe my memory is also really bad too. So
because we played with Sabatini several times, but it was often, I think it may have been for sure before you joined, and I was trying to figure out today, like, fuck, did we share the stage and I didn't even realize it?
Maybe. It's weird because, like, yeah, there's that Montreal thing, and like Derelict comes up a lot with the Sabs because you know those guys and you have a history with them before me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
me trying to place my spot in that lineage is hard for me. I'm sure we could have, and I could have done that
Yeah.
gig. I have a really bad memory.
It all gets foggy too because then there was Turbo House gigs where I saw, like, I wasn't playing, but I saw you with Sabatini, and then I went to see you with Grabert. But like, you know how it is in nights in metal bars. You're like, wait, was that a show I played? Like, you just remember being outside with people, and you're like, wait, was that a gig I did?
No doubt, man.
Or was that just when I went to? I don't know anymore.
I know. But like, it does, like, do you know Joey more than Shawnee or Shawnee more than Joey, or you just know all the guys kind of all the same?
I think probably Sean the best. But only because I think we've had the most conversations.
But Derelict was doing stuff when Marv was around, yeah or no?
No, so I think there was just like I don't know what year they stopped, but I was like starting to. So I'm a little bit younger, I think, than Sean and Joey. So I think I was just becoming aware of the Montreal underground scene. Like I saw Inve play, like Big James's band before Endust, and I don't think I ever saw Violent Marv play, but I would hear about them. And then not long after that, Sabatini started and Derelict started, and
So yeah, you toured, like, would you say a lot with Derelict or just enough? Like, kind of like what happened to Derelict?
Well, yeah, great question. So Derelict, so we started in 2005. We put out a record in 2006, an EP in 2008, a record in 2009, and a record in 2012. So we did 3 cross-Canada tours, 1 Maritimes tour, and like more weekends than I can, like, even. There was a point where we were doing 2 weekends a month. So it was like we were constantly in Ontario. We were actually, because we signed at a certain, our 2009 record was with Year of the Sun.
Oh, wow.
And Kerosene Media. So like Misguided Aggression and Odium were on that too. So we became super good friends with those guys. But we were in Southern Ontario so much that like we started to know, like, when you start recognizing the graffiti and the en route bathroom stalls and stuff, it's like you've been there a lot. So we did that so much over those years. But there was a huge shift in that band essentially in 2010 on our last Cross Canada tour. One of our founding members quit like while we were on the road.
Oh wow!
And he finished out the tour, but it created a big questioning period for us. And then one of the newer members left when he left, so we were down to 3, and we kind of had to go. All right, like, what have we been doing? Why are we doing this? It was a lot. Like, the expenses of the band went from being paid by 5 people to 3 people. And then we said, fuck it. We had enough music to like hunker down and make a record, and we're like, let's do this, the 3 of us. And then like so I was a vocalist in Derelict, but I had originally played guitar as well, and I stopped because I got like wrist problems. Okay. So I wrote a lot of the songs, but our guitar player Max was more than able to play like all the guitar parts, and we got a session bass player. So we're like, okay, let's do this. We'll see what happens. And it ended up being like, I'm so proud of that record because everything that hadn't been working in the band before that point on that record, like a lot of the songs, you'll see at least 2 songwriters, if not 3. And it was like the songs are not done until we all love them, and we would change, and we just came together as friends and as a trio of bandmates. And then that record was like really big for us. We got 2 new members after that. It became the best live lineup and the most positive vibe we ever had.
Cool.
But so this is 2012. So we did a lot during that year. We did a Maritimes tour. We ended up getting nominated at the Indies, which was super weird, like alongside Devin Townsend. I don't even know to this day like who put a word in for us. I think it must have been radio, like college radio.
Did Year of the Sun put out the last one? Was it them maybe?
No, that was completely independent. We did
Wow.
that ourselves.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so things were going really well, but we were also, it was kind of like, this has to grow to keep us hooked. We were tired of like, the shows that bomb out and that kind of thing, the spending every penny that you have. And what ended up happening is, like, despite the positivity and the really well received record, we had a really bad string of bad luck. There were 3 festivals. One cut us, like, at the last second. We were supposed to be going to Toronto. We played 2 other festivals that, like, the classic fiasco where, like, the promoter disappears, there's no money.
Ugh.
Like, one of them was Hellfest in La Naudière, and if you ever speak to the people who are in Blackguard,
Okay.
they can attest to this. The promoter had a nervous breakdown, apparently. By the time we got to the show, the promoter was no longer there. So they had hired this crazy stage with sound techs from, like, this huge company, but there was no stage manager, there was no production company at this point. So us and Blackguard basically got together and reorganized the show, because like the lineup, like, everything was falling apart, everything was late. So we kind of were like, all right, no, you guys are playing at this time, this amount of time. We ended up switching our load in, and we were told by these guys, I don't know if it was Solo Tech, but it was one of those big companies, and the stage tech guys, they looked at us and like, we've never seen a band set up as fast as this.
Oh, I'm sure, man.
So, but it was like, so we played that, and then there was no money. So we just getting hit after hit after hit. And then there was the battle for heavy MTL that happened.
Okay.
So what had happened is we had been told 2 years in a row that we had been like one of the very close to being selected to play heavy MTL.
Okay.
And then 1 year we were booted because they needed like a francophone band that sang in French.
Okay.
We had like, I'm Québécois, 50-50 English French, but we only had one song that was half in French and whatever. So we got booted, and then another year there was some other reason. So some of the people in our band were like, we should do this battle because we came so close that like we could probably do this. And others of us were like, including me, I wasn't really for it. I'm like, I don't want to compete, music. It's not, for me, it wasn't about that. But we did it anyway, and we won the death metal round, which was great. And then we did not win the general round. There was a younger band that brought like, when you're like 20 and everyone is willing to come.
Oh yeah, totally.
To your gig.
Yeah.
And we were like 30, and all of the people we know had come to our a million times.
Yeah, totally.
It was an all ages show. It was really cool. There was a lot of people there, but we didn't win that. And then it was kind of like it took the wind out of the sails for some of the members. And then a few months after that, I was managing the band. I had a PR company, so I was doing everything behind the scenes, really. And I suddenly felt like, oh shit, the wind is out of the sails. But like, we're spending money. We have rent. We have insurance, and I'm doing it. But I can see that it's over, and I didn't want to like a year-long death throw.
Yeah.
So I just said, guys, we got to put this on ice. We got to do it now before this sours, and because we were writing a record. We wanted to do like an EP, and then follow it up with a full length, and we had a bunch of ideas, but it's like people weren't learning the songs. It was that vibe.
The best way I think you said is the wind out of the sails. You could tell, right? Like,
yeah.
Especially if people aren't learning songs, it's kind of like, there's no wind at all.
Yeah, and when you show up to practice and it's like, all right, are we playing the new one? And then like 2 out of 5 people are like, oh, I didn't open the tab, I didn't, and you're
sucks.
like, whoa, okay, like that's okay, but we should stop before we get like let's stay friends. Let's not
Yeah.
sour this, you know. So
You're still buddies with those guys?
oh yeah, oh my God, yeah.
That's awesome.
So the two guys that were left, Jordan Perry is the drummer from the beginning with me, and Max Lucier had joined when I hurt my wrists. He was in a band called Prometheus. He was a good friend of ours. But the bands were friends, but he was also my friend personally. So I was like, Max, can you play my parts? And like, he's a more skilled guitar player than me, so he's like, yeah, absolutely. And then the first show we played with me on just vocals, we all looked at each other and we're like, this is the thing. This is the like. It's funner this way. I was kind of an animal, like jumping in the crowd, like kicking people. Like it was fun to do. So he stayed, Jordan stayed, and like those guys are some of my best friends. I was Jordan's best man at his wedding.
Oh, cool.
And the two last guys who were in the band, Xavier Spreduklis and Simon Cleroux, we never got to be as close because they weren't there for long, but we're still good friends. And Simon is in the Unconscious Mind. He's like the main guy in that, like a kind of a blackened death metal band. And Zav is in like a ton of bands. He's like a really skilled bass player. So like if you look at lineups of bands and cover bands in Montreal, and like he's all over the place.
So it just kind of fizzled out. I think that's good to know when to call it though, especially for the sake of friendships. Because in the end, it's just a fucking band, and it's super unlikely that any of our bands are gonna quote unquote make it. So I think that can get lost. And again, I just speak from my experience, where it's just some of my friendships have suffered because it's been too hard, right? Like especially with Tugnut, like you go as hard as you do with a certain band, and that band, we probably should have called it way earlier because, what the fuck? It's just, music is important. It is super important. It defines a lot of us. But on the other flip of it, it's like, yeah, but friends are also important too, like.
Yeah. At the bottom of it, like people are more important in the end. So I am glad we played it that way.
Totally. I'd rather have a bunch of friends and no music than like be just a music guy, like just like some guy who doesn't know when to quit and just alienate everybody and just be too driven. That's probably the case with, I think, a lot of different passions. You could be too driven and drive people out.
For sure. And I know that I have that tendency in me. So I was like, no, I'm not gonna try to push. But it's funny because the way you phrase that, it makes me think of what I'm going through now. Because when we put that on hold or put it on ice, it never came back. Like Derelict's done. I was not ready to stop.
Yeah.
So I immediately just, the songs that I was writing for Derelict, I'm like, okay, this is a solo project now. And I came up with the name Samskaras, and I just kept working. And I got Alexandre Duprat, who's a drummer in Unhuman and Terra Mobile, and like just fucking phenomenal drummer. And we started putting stuff out. So that was like, Alex was like, hey man, this is your project, bring me the songs. So like all the instruments except drums and vocals are me. And that's cool. But it's a fuckload of work. And now that I've done, like, I did 2 singles and then 2 EPs. And now I'm at a point where I'm like, I don't feel like writing for that project right now because I'm like, I'm just alone in my fucking office.
Man, yeah, like that, like it's in, so, wow, yeah, like, I dream about being able to be that kind of guy that can write music, but there's something, like tonight I was jamming with Mark, and there's something really innocent, maybe is the word, about jamming with other people. It's so fun. It's so youthful. And that's something I was going to ask about. Like, yeah, if you're writing most of this shit on your own, like, you have to trust your gut, I guess. But yeah, you're almost answering it now. And like, would I be wrong, or am I right to say, like, yeah, are you missing the whole band sort of dynamic?
Yeah, and it's funny like that we're doing this at this time because I'm at this strange crossroad point. So like when I started Samskaras, like Derelict was super collaborative, and that's awesome. But it also made me think, okay, so I've relied on the approval of some of my closest friends to tell me when my songs are ready for many years, really my entire musical career. So I'm like, okay, now, like, Alex is not going to give me songwriting feedback. He's going to crush on drums, but he's expecting like a finalized song. So I'm like, okay, this is a new challenge. So I did that, and I did it quite a bit. Well, I released, all told, I've released 10 songs as Samskaras, but for me it feels like 40 because I'm playing 4 instruments, right? So it's like the amount put into it, like it's a lot for me from my perspective anyway. But just now that I haven't been inspired for this, now that I'm living in Ontario, my other project that was fully studio, it's called Unburnt. It's with guys from Odium and John from We Are Human,
Yeah, I saw that.
was Guided Aggression before. We're getting together next weekend. No, not this coming weekend, the one after, for the first time. We haven't seen each other in person in like, I want to say 8 years. So we have an EP that's done. We just have to finish the mix at Joe's house. So I'm like, I'm in a band again. I'm like, I'm just going with my mic and a cable and like my lyric sheets, and I'm really stoked. Even if we just jam a couple of times. But those guys have active bands in the scene over here. So if we want to play shows, I suppose that it's something we can do, you know?
Yeah. Well, and it might be a case of grass is greener, you know? Like the idea of being all in control of your own shit, and that is definitely great, but at least you're lucky in that you can do both, you know? It's super rad that you can totally drive the ship of your own shit, and also like you just easily like, I'll play bass, I'll play guitar, I'll play vocals. Do you ever like worry? I guess you're not really in these shoes, but what is too many bands for you? Would 2 be enough, or like 4 enough, or what?
I don't know. I haven't really thought about that. Like, I sat down at the beginning of 2019 and I wrote down, I was going through a bit of a hard time at the end of 2018, and I had some things to think about, you know, and I sat down and I wrote out some of my values and like what's important to me. And one of them was creativity. So I said, okay, so now that you have your value, what goals can come out of that? And I was like, well, do something in music this year. If it's not Samskaras, like maybe my juices have run out for now with that. I'm close to these guys in Unburnt. Let's see what can happen there. So like for me, it's as long as I give that a shot and I feel something different than if I wasn't doing it, then it'll have been worthwhile, you know?
Totally.
So I see it more that way now. I don't have aspirations of like, when like 10 years ago, I was like, maybe I could be a full-time musician forever. And I've taken another career path completely. So I'm just, whatever, creativity. If it can happen, it can happen.
That moment where you shifted from like, I could do this as a musician to like, I can't do this. Did that feel like a defeat, or did it feel like maturity? Like how did that feel for you? Because I think a lot of metal people but could come to that realization of like, this is going to be fucking hard to make this happen.
Yeah.
And you have to make a choice.
Fantastic question. And yeah, it's a bit of a story, but I realized, so all the Samskaras stuff and all of the Derelict stuff going back to 2009, I've been working with Chris Donaldson from Cryptopsy that whole time. So I got to know him pretty well, and I got to see how, like, obviously, you know, you can see I'm
your
wearing
shirt.
the Cryptopsy shirt. One of my favorite bands, and I love Chris to death. And I got to see his life, and he's killing it, right? Like, he's in one of the biggest death metal bands, at least from Canada and Quebec. And he's running a studio that's world renowned. So he's able to live off his music, but through owning a successful business and being in a highly successful band. So I was like, okay, this is doable. I don't have aspirations to be a producer. What else can I do? So like I did a communications degree. So right out of university, I immediately opened a PR company.
Huh.
And I worked for myself for several years, working for other bands. I actually worked on Beyond Creation before they were signed.
Oh, wow.
Unleash the Archers were like one of my first clients.
Wow, that's cool.
So I was blessed to like work with these. Now I see where they're at now, and I'm like, oh man, I'm so happy that someone else like
Yeah,
they got a better publicist than me.
Sounds like a lot of
they
work.
need it.
Yeah, fuck.
But it was fun at the time, and those bands were at a level that I was able to handle professionally.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I was like, okay, I can do this. And then there's a crossover there because the things I learned for my company will work for my band, vice versa, and it was great. We went on tour. I got satellite internet, just doing my work from the van. It was stellar. Except that at a certain point, and this culminated around in the 2012 Maple Spring protests. Like I was involved. I was very much like on the student side. I was out of school, and I was like, how can they double tuition? This doesn't make sense.
Uh-huh.
And it was a very, very tense time for me. And I kind of had a depressive episode where I was like, man, there's so much going on in the world. And I sing about it. Like Derelict was a very political band, but I didn't feel like I was doing anything on my daily life that was helping for the causes that were important to me. And the thing is, when you're a publicist, is that like, if you can work only for bands that you love, you fucking made it. The reality is, sometimes you got to just take whatever works around. So like, I'd be working for like, you know, a kid pop artist whose parents paid for her music video from somewhere in the States, and I'm emailing like, you know, local newspapers in Florida to be like, do you want to watch this girl play in the mall? And I was like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? And I kind of lost it. And there was a switch that happened, and I ended up stumbling I was on my way to meet a client, and I was on the subway, and you know, they have those Metro newspapers. It's like named after the Metro, and and I just opened it randomly, and I saw the face of a guy I knew, who I knew from school. And I'm like, what the fuck is he in the paper? And I start reading, and he had started this organization called Youth Fusion, which was basically they implanted community workers in high schools to help reduce dropout rates.
Okay.
And they would do various programs. So I'm like, this is fucking cool. So I went on the website, and they were looking for a music coordinator.
Crazy.
So I'm like, I'm doing this. So long story short, I ended up working as a youth worker.
Cool.
With a bunch of kids. Some of them were metalheads. It was amazing because as soon as they realized who I was, they're like, oh my God, teach us how to sing, teach us. Like, they were freaking out. But a lot of kids were into hip hop, like religious music, like pop, all sorts of stuff. And I did that for a couple of years. And that made me, it solved my problem of like, what the fuck am I doing? Because now I was helping people.
Yeah.
And then I went back to school, became a social worker. That was my trajectory out of depression and out of existential what the fuck. But music got me there, because I would have had no other like credential. Like the other programs were like robotics. Fuck, I don't know anything about that. But give me a guitar and a drum set and some kids who would like have energy, and like, oh my God, we did some cool stuff.
That's fucking cool, man. Yeah. Well, it's all the talents and the experience you gain as a musician. It is a question of like, where do I fucking apply this in the real world? Because it's not gonna pay. Like, so rare does it fucking pay. So that's your gig now? You're doing social work now?
Yeah, so I went back to school, and it's funny because the story in my mind, I guess I see it like narratively, but it all fits because, I protested with the students and we won. They didn't increase the tuition, which meant I was able to afford to go back to school.
Yeah. Fuck.
So yeah, I work with kids still. I'm a mental health counselor for kids.
That's awesome, man. It's well, it's great because you can have a career and still release crushing music. Like
Yeah.
it's a balance. I feel like life has to be such a balance thing. Like
Absolutely.
I'm experiencing that, like normal shit and then band shit, and it's just, I don't know, healthy. I wanted to kind of talk about the record a bit, or the EP.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just like the idea of the I had to write it down because I'm a half head, but the relationship between anger and self-control. Like the EP is called Lithification.
Yeah.
So like this is it a exploring like why you get upset or how you deal with it, or like are you like a extreme guy, like really happy or really sad, and like it's a big theme that I think we could totally go into, and especially you wrote a whole EP about it.
Totally. I really appreciate that question. I think it's important. So I see a lot of parallels between that stuff and what I went through and then wrote about, and then what I work with kids about a lot of the time. So like lithification, the word itself, it's a geological term. It's like how sedimentary shit gets crushed and heated up and eventually becomes rock. So like so the kind of the analogy is like the human heart, right? Like how much do you harden before it's no longer a heart? So the actual title track, Lithification, that song is about like surviving a devastating emotional experience, and then being like, how much do I harden to survive this? And then the resultant like stone-hearted motherfucker that comes out of that, like, is he negatively impacted by what he's become? And it's kind of striking that balance. And then I guess a lot of the rest of the EP is really about like when something brings you to a point emotionally of losing control of what's important to you. Like I'll give you an example. Before I left Montreal, like traffic, I was working with young offenders, so I had to drive all over the city often to different locations. Traffic had me to the point that some days I would punch my dashboard in frustration. And that I was writing the lyrics like during that time, and I'm like, see, this is our society and the constraints of my life have, even with all my like layers of self-control, my reliance on meditation, all these things, I'm boiled over right now. And how can I better use this energy? And so it's really exploring that. And like for me, when something triggers you emotionally, especially in the direction of anger, and you can go, all right, I see you, anger. Thank you for sending me the signal that this situation is unacceptable, but I'm going to use you now to do this, to like either, I don't know what, make music, do something else, turn it into something else. For me, that's the power right there. You just turn that shit, and that's like for me the concept of warriorship, like committing to the world's going to keep trying to make me just be a fucking ape. So I want to be a higher being than that. I want to take this input and turn it into something at least acceptable, socially acceptable, and if not even better than that, and use the lessons learned to help other people as well. So it's that.
So like, would you say that before and after writing the record and exploring these type of themes, like you're just, or was this a whole exercise in emotions and stuff that you had before? Like, I'm just wondering if you, after you wrote this record, if you really were a changed person, or if it was before the record that you were like, oh, I've learned this, now I'm just going to write about it so other people can latch onto it. Because I think expressing yourself and writing music can be exhausting and but also like a moment to self-reflect, because you're reflecting on like, is this a good riff? Is this a good song? Is this whole thing put together? Was this EP in the end something you learned from, or are you hoping to teach people some things with the EP?
Yeah, I think it ends up, in hindsight, it's kind of like a capstone to several years of personal change. So like I often tell my partner now, I'm like, oh, if you knew me, like if you knew me before, you would have never been interested. Me. Yeah, you would have been like, who is this guy? But even so you can overcome things, but then it takes even more time to like harness what you've learned and to be able to share it and communicate it. And like I didn't really realize that I was going through this whole process. And sometimes like writing lyrics will be, for me, they come out pretty quickly because I always write them after the music, and then I'm constrained by the riffs. So often I'm like, I think of a pattern and I'm like, oh, okay, so I need 8 syllables here. This, and it all falls into place. And then but now when I reread the lyrics on that EP, I get choked up because I didn't even realize how important to me it was when I was writing it. But when I look at it, I'm like, what the fuck? Like that really just leaked out, and it represents so many years. Because most of what I wrote before, like almost all of the Derelict lyrics were political or social commentaries. There was very little I in that. And if there was, it was like the collective I. It was very rarely me. Maybe a couple of songs touched on that. And with Samskaras, I was like, all right, like I've said, I've done my anti-capitalist stuff. I don't need to repeat it. I've done the break your chains of like philosophical oppression. I don't need to do that again. Let's go deep. Let's go more emotional. And that in turn pulls out, like for me, a vocal performance I'm even prouder of, because it's like when you're like trying not to cry in the vocal booth, you know that the screams are going to come out good, Yeah.
Because it's an EP, were 4 songs enough to really, I guess, looking back, were 4 songs enough to get that message across? Like, could you have done more on this whole theme or less, do you think?
I think it's funny because I didn't set out with the idea, like I always name a release after I have all the songs. Like there was no concept. It was like I looked at it and I'm like, oh shit, okay, As Warriors and Alignment are both about anger in a different way. Lithification's about overcoming like really intense emotional experience, and then Ad de Remain is straight up like a kind of an angry history of Quebec in French. It has nothing to do really with the other ones. It's like a wake up kind of like rallying cry kind of thing.
Okay.
So I don't even really know how to answer because
go ahead.
It's just because for me, like the doing 2 guitars, bass, and vocals takes so much effort. Even though it's 4 songs, I feel like it's a full length. So like when I'm done that, I'm like, like I have nothing left. Like that's it. That's what I had. This is whatever it is. This is what it is.
Yeah. I like the theme of it all could be a singular song almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah, in a way.
But it's interesting that it's I guess 3 kind of more focused towards the whole theme. Did you place these as far as the song order? Is there any backstory to like why Reconciliation is first, or is it just how it felt and it sounded? Because it is kind of a thematic thing, but I know some albums and stuff have like there's a message, there's like a chronological or a sort of best way to take the record in lyrically, but or maybe not.
That's a
I don't
good
know.
question. You also just made me realize that I referred to Reconciliation as the title track because the word in my head, because the word lithification is in that song, so that it anyway. I think the song order is was mostly chosen based on just like the flow musically.
Yeah.
But it is interesting because reconciliation is like, okay, so you've been emotionally destroyed. How are you going to survive that?
Mm-hmm.
Then the second one, as warriors, is kind of like take pride in your primal self as long as you can use it well. Let's not be like, rage monsters doing whatever. Use that and be a powerful person, right? And then alignment is like super inspired by Buddhism. Just like, how do you then harness yourself? How do you see horrible shit in the world and just like keep going and do the things you have to do? So they kind of fit sequentially. And then Adurme, I think I wrote it in a different, like that one was written by itself and it's more of a tech death akin to Derelict kind of thing. And the other three I wrote kind of in a big sequence at the same period of time. So I put it at the end because it just kind of like gets this crazy tech death pick me up and then it's over.
Did you was this, I'm just looking now, I think it was just a digital thing, right? Did you think about pressing it? Or it's hard because it's 4 tracks, so it's kind of like you could, but it's
Yeah, that's the plan was, so I put out in 2017 there was another EP called Asunder. So they were both pretty near together. What I considered doing was like a split between my own band, like just like almost the package would be 2 album covers either side, and then you open it up and the leaflet explains what's going on. The plan was Alex and I were starting to put together a live lineup. We had Hugo from Beyond Creation was going to play, Max from Derelict was going to play. We were looking for a guitar player. And in the midst of all that, my girlfriend and I decided to move to Ontario. So the whole plans of that were put on hold. I had a starting life over in some sense, new job, new everything. So the idea had been, if we were going to do shows with a live lineup, I will print physical because let's be honest, that's where I'm going to move units. I was still moving from apartment to apartment with boxes of unsold Derelict stuff, which I heartbreakingly recently had to part myself with. So I was like, I don't want to do that. I didn't want to do that again. And there are a fair number of people who will download and it's a pay what you want, and they'll still pay for it. I was actually quite surprised with Lithification. Like the amount coming in the first 2 days was crazy. We had a metal injection thing that went really well. We my publicist, Austin, he convinced me. I'm like anti-gimmick. I'm like, just get the news out. Which basically, it's a good thing I changed careers because I wasn't on it. He was like, he secured a stream with metal injection, but he's like, what if we do like an Easter egg where in fact the EP's already released, but the only place it's announced is somewhere in the article on metal injection. So if you read the whole thing and you're streaming, it'll be like, actually, if you go to Bandcamp now, you can take it, pay what you want. So I'm like, yeah, sure, do whatever you want. Like, I figure, he's working, he's trying to prove his value for what I'm paying him. Go for it, man.
Sure.
He does it, it fucking explodes. There was like so many people based off that, and I'm like, wow, I must be disconnected because like for me, I wouldn't have cared about something like that, but apparently people do. So
that's the crazy thing about yeah, any PR company and releases and the way to do it. Like, there's so many factors, like the type of music you play, the demographic you're hitting, like people who read full articles versus just like, click the first link and, oh my God, it's like a lotto to get anyone to pay attention, especially in like a tsunami of releases and shit like that. That's great work, man.
Totally.
Fuck, like.
Well, that actually leads me to a question I was thinking about that I have for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I've been doing the solo thing without playing live for a couple of years, so I'm a little disconnected from the realities. Like, as far as promoting your stuff, getting it out there, like, how do you feel things have changed? Because, like, when I started, we made the mistake of trying to do what bands just a bit older than us were doing, but the internet was in the middle of fucking that model right up. So like we basically tried to do exactly what Endost were doing, but we were a couple of years behind them, so it didn't work as well. So I'm wondering, like, are you as a live touring musician still, like, are you guys still trying to be on the cutting edge, or are you just like, we do what we do?
Yeah, it's so interesting, man. It's kind of, we do what we do within our means and try to hit as many people as, it's like a timing thing, I feel a lot. And also the weird thing to put into factor is like your social media following and utilizing that. And even like the Sabs, like, it's so weird because you would think, for example, like we have a mailing list that we didn't really use through Bandcamp. And at first it was like, oh, sweet, we have all these people that, are on a mailing list, but you send it out and I can see the reports of, so it's kind of like, even though we have fans, people who signed up for a mailing list, doesn't guarantee that they're even going to open the email from us. It's insane.
Right.
Like, it totally has changed. It's really a thing of like and I feel like this is where the youth are good at it, just because they spend so much time on social media. Like, how do you utilize hashtags and all these tricks and connecting follows and views, and it's a whole new strategy. It's almost like the stock market, I feel like now. Like, you need to be an insider and know how to use that tool to really utilize it.
Totally. I was thinking about that today. As soon as I wasn't really at work. I was in a training today that I was sent to for work. So as soon as I got out of it, right away my brain went to this conversation. I'm like, what are we going to talk about? I was like thinking about your bands. And I was walking to the gym and I'm like, what would I do if I was 20 and starting a band, but with the knowledge I have? Like, what would I not fuck up? What would I do differently? And I'm like, man, I think I would tell those people, don't grind it out.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Do like create a buzz, like do shows in your jam space, charge $1 and sell beer, but make sure everyone in the band is doing something online. So is somebody good at writing? Write a blog. Is somebody like a shredder? Start a YouTube guitar channel.
Totally, yeah.
Is somebody else blah blah blah? But link it all back and like just put out content, viewership, without having to spend the thousands of dollars we spent on vans and gas and hotels, which is rare, but you know what I mean? Like 100%. All that shit.
I had a conversation recently about this, about touring and how like touring isn't as niche and as like unique as it used to be, and even the need for it. Because we're of that school of like, you just get out there and grind because that's what our peers did, but man, these new kids can have like solid content that looks pro, that is easy to access, and they have an audience of like-minded people who are all on their apps all day. Like, I have accounts, but I checked today, like maybe a half hour of Instagram is what I'm doing a day. A half hour to an hour, whereas some kids they just live on it, or Snapchat, or I don't know. Totally. I think Vine's gone, but like there's so many Yeah, I would be the same sort of way where I would tell kids like, yeah, just don't do what I did and grind and lose all this money. Put that money towards like a good camera to shoot your playthrough videos and stuff like that.
And like as far as shows, I'd be like, yeah, like set up your jam space as if it was club soda. Don't play like a grimy like don't, even if you're playing to 4 of your friends, practice as though you're playing at a huge venue, but then only do shows in big cities that are like good opportunities, opening for larger acts, and then play this shit out of like middle of nowhere tiny markets where like 100 people come out and buy all your merch.
Yeah, and fund it that way, yeah.
Those were the shows for me that I remember the most. Like on tour, most of the big cities, like occasionally they'd be good, but then it's when you're in like Sioux Lookout, Ontario, and every kid in town comes to the youth center.
Did you guys
the
play
3 years in a row?
You played Sioux Lookout?
3 years, yeah.
What? Man, that's so
Dude.
Close to where I grew up.
Really?
Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
This little town called Emo, which is near Fort Francis. And Fort Francis is like an hour and a half, I think, from Sioux Lookout or something like that. That's fucked that you played Sioux Lookout 3 times. Did you guys ever do Dryden?
Yeah. We did not play Dryden.
Kenora?
We went through. Yeah, it was wild because I just found, it might have been Big James who gave me the contact the first time, but they just dudes that were putting on shows at this youth center. And we're like, you know, whatever. It's like not too far from Thunder Bay. It's actually 4 hours from Thunder Bay.
Yeah.
In the fucking middle of nowhere. But amazing. And then and we formed some pretty close personal bonds with some of those kids. Like they were like, it wasn't only we like your band, but it was like, how do you get out? Like, how can we do something? And like, even not a music, like kids were asking us about school, like what town should I go to school in?
Yeah.
And like by the 3rd year, like there were people waiting outside the youth center when our van pulled up, and they're like, you know, the van's slowing down. They're like, God, you guys are back. And it was fucking crazy.
Man.
Like those are the shows that I remember the best. Playing with a crappy PA on a floor with my like road case riser that I'd stand on.
Man, I grew up in those small towns. I worked at a gas station, and Emo's like 1,000 people. No stoplights, no McDonald's. It's like a fucking farm town. And every now and then, a band or just clearly someone from out of town would roll through the gas station to get gas, and it blew my mind. It was like literally like, whoa, someone from the outside. So I know what those kids were like. We used to have bands in Fort play. We started like right before I left home, so I was like 17. We started getting touring bands in, and that was like insane. Like, oh, these guys were on Much Music, and like, really having your mind sort of blown that like, oh, you're like, even if a band from Montreal came, it'd be like, you guys are from Montreal? What the fuck? That's crazy.
Totally.
I was that kid, man. I was that kid on the van, like, whoa, you guys are here.
How old were you when you left there?
20. I was 20, I think.
20,
It was 03 when I moved.
Okay.
But I would tell the kids the same sort of thing where it'd be like, yeah, like play where if you can make some cash and make sure your product is good and connect your social media accounts and inspire these young kids who live in these fuck towns.
But seriously, a shout out to all those kids, man, that we knew but that are there, because Canada is a fucking weird country. It's a country of like many cultures forced together in a large geographical area, and like the North is forgotten, man.
Totally.
And like what I know now through my social work studies and stuff, like I understand and am horrified by what goes on. But like I didn't know. We were touring. I would pick up local newspapers, and it's like, wait a minute, what? Another Indigenous person has been shot. And it's like the narrative is like, what the fuck is going on? And like there's a song on Perpetuation about that, Spoils of War. It's just like, it was about just being in shock and like feeling, what is this place actually? Because like I grew up from a family of people who were super pro Canada, but they never really went anywhere west of like Niagara Falls.
Word.
They didn't
Yeah.
see the rest of the country. They're like, Canada's the best place in the world. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good, but like you should go to Northern Ontario before you make an opinion, because like there's people up there that are going through a pretty rough fucking time, you know?
Man, it's so until I moved, not until I moved, then I, realized how fucked up it is back home. And it's crazy because people back home who never leave the district don't know any different. They think that this is just normal. Like the whole even mentality of literally like, don't go to the res, you'll get stabbed. Like that, and that still is to this day back home. I'll go back home and hear some real gnarly shit. Yeah, I grew up north, man. So like, yeah, there's me and Muskie have had like tons of conversations on this topic itself. But yeah, like that's the one thing though with touring that I wish like these young kids who are doing shit now who don't really have to tour, they can have musical success and get lots of following and downloads and streams and stuff with good marketing. But there's no denying the experience of touring and how it opens your mind and your experiences playing your silly little music to people who won't maybe ever get exposed to a touring band, and these young dudes or girls or whoever doing something that seems insane. Like, what, you get in a van and you booked some shows through MySpace and you're playing our stupid hall, our Legion.
Yeah. And we were crazy. We were crazy, man. Like, I had no money. There was one tour, I think I had $400 to last me 40 days. And I was eating just carrots and hummus. That's what I was eating, period. And like, just surviving, man, and going. And like, I still sometimes, like, in social work, you encounter a lot of odd human situations. And I have like a lot of programming in my brain that clicks on because of experiences in weird places on tour. And I don't even have a conscious memory of it, but my brain goes, oh, this type of person, what's about to happen here is this. And then it fucking happens. And I'm like, I only know that because of probably something that happened in a bar in Prince George, BC at 3 a.m. And like,
man, I know that so well. Where I don't like to think I know what I'm talking about when it comes to this specific thing, but I think, okay, I've played a lot of shows to a lot of different types of people, and I've met a fucking ton of different types of people, and you start to, at least I start to recognize patterns of like, that box is where this person goes into, just due to the sheer number of people that we've met. So I know what you're saying, where it's like, oh, I recognize this descriptor for this person. It's Buddy from Louisiana that night when we were all shit-faced or whatever.
You'll hear, like, I'll hear somebody start talking completely about something mundane, and something in my brain will go, within 5 minutes, this guy's going to say something racist. And then it fucking happens. Because I saw like so many of those people. Or the opposite. Somebody who's like super demure and like, nice to meet you. And I'm like, within 10 minutes, this motherfucker is like going to reveal to me that he's like the best cellist in his town. And like you see it coming, and it's like, I love it. I love that. And I would never give any, and like the weird, like there are things that I saw on tour, like shows that the people who are there, if I see them, I can say one word and they're like, yep, that was the most, like, no one will ever understand what that word means, but that is the most fucked up thing in the world, and we saw it together,
Yeah, totally, man, totally. Recently I met someone who took me for a spin, where I'm like, I know this guy, and then it totally like went, this guy turned into a super weirdo. He was I don't, like, Mark would have to be here to explain it, but just became a super weirdo. Just like, what are you talking about? You look normal, you sound normal, everything's normal about you. But so there's still a lot of people to meet. I know I've met a lot of people, but there's still a shit ton to meet. So, man, I
That's
do these
true.
about this long, and then I'll do the Hibzine.
Okay.
And I wanted to play Alignment. I thought that was a pretty sick track on the
Yeah, great.
on the record. So I'll put it in after. But yeah, this is Alignment off of Lithification by Samskaras, right? That's how I say it.
Yeah.
Right here. Was that. But yeah, man, shit. So I guess shout out all the stuff so people can find it. It's samskarasmetal.bandcamp.com, I think.
Yeah. So I think I still have the domain. So samskarasmetal.com will dump you onto the Bandcamp. Pretty easy. And then Derelict Metal on Bandcamp as well for my old band, and Unburnt Metal. We only have one song out, but there's going to be an EP out within the next few months. So yeah, look, thank you so much. This was really great,
man.
And like, you were talking about disconnecting from social media a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I had been for a while, and at some point, I think Sean posted something, and I'm like, oh, take her wide. And I click, and I'm like, oh my God, everyone I know. Like, I had so many back episodes to listen to.
Word.
Like, James, Scott Hamilton, Dave
Yeah.
Sheldon. I'm just like, oh fuck, this is good. This
Man,
is
well,
great.
it's cool that us, because I feel like the core of this audience is us. You know what I mean? Like dudes in their late 30s who did it and are aging a bit and reminiscing, but still creating. Like, yeah, I'm happy to have you on, man. I'm glad that we could do this, and hopefully some people fucking, you get some new fans, some new little bubbles pop into our bubble, and the bubble gets a little bigger. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Cool, man. Well, I'm
Thank you so much.
gonna wrap this up. I will I'll text you and tag you and when it's goes live. But thank you, man. That was a real pleasure, man. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. We'll be in touch, okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, peace, buddy.
Peace.
Cool, guys. Thank you so much for listening to the show and supporting the show. If you haven't yet, you can like the show on Facebook or subscribe to the YouTube channel. What else? The Instagram is Take Her Wide Podcast. Twitter's there, Take Her Wide Pod. The homepage is takeherwide.com. I'm trying to keep pretty busy with the social media stuff. Tell a friend. Every week I'm putting these out, and I'm talking to really cool people who I feel like the soul of this show is I don't want to diminish anyone by saying the underdog, but people who are as passionate as those people who have succeeded, quote unquote, or maybe just made this a full-time gig. And the people who are still underground still have a lot to say and still have value in what they're making. So I hope you get that out of this show, and it inspires you to make and create and put some positivity out there. We all could use it. So yeah, what else can I say? I got the shirts. If you guys want to buy a shirt, just go to takerwide.com, click on merch. Sean Arsenian designed it. Ironclad printed it. I got all sizes. You guys will be covered. And all the sponsors, let me shout these out real quick. Again, just follow these guys on Instagram. Easy, like them. Simple. We have Brewed Biscuits, all natural spent grain pet treats. Go to twospentgrains.ca. That's TWO, spentgrains.ca. And you can see the treats they make for your dog. I'm going to be having a contest here soon where you can win a bag or two. Heartbeathotsauce.com for the hot sauce company from Thunder Bay that will probably be the best hot sauce you ever try. No bullshit. Los Cabos Drumsticks, loscabosdrumsticks.com. It's pretty self-explanatory. They make drumsticks that are awesome. I use them. A lot of you guys use them too. Show them some love. Kevin Rigo of Hefner Toyota. He's at 3121 King Street East in Kitchener. Go buy a car from him. That'd be sick. Ironcladgraphics.com. They're the silk screening company in Kingston. They ship coast to coast. Again, they make everything. You guys can go to ironcladgraphics.com, see what they got. What else? Dapperbeardoil.com. Use promo code TakerWide free ship to save on shipping of your beard oil. It's legit beard oil. It doesn't suck. He's taking his time. It's really, really fucking good. Dapperbeardoil.com and wellingtonbrewery.ca for the beers. That's it, guys. Yeah, I really do love you guys. I miss all you and hope to see you soon. Come back next week. I'll have another cool guest. Okay? Peace.